Good evening and welcome to the January 26th meeting of the Lowell License Commission. Secretary Winwood, is the meeting posted?
Yes.
Number one on the agenda, please.
Review of the minutes for meeting of January 12, 2017.
Commissioner Krieger.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Move for approval by Commissioner Krieger, seconded by Commissioner McCarthy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Number two.
Commission will now take up matter to do with application by Dan Clapp, doing business as the 1634 Meadery at from business address of 3 Short Street. Dan Clapp is manager, Ipswich, Massachusetts. The Dan Clapp 1634 Meadery is looking to have a farmer winery permit for the farmer's market at Mill Number 5, which is the main corridor, 4th floor, 250 Jackson Street. There'll be wine sales to be held in a 10 foot by 10 foot vendor space as assigned within the farmer's market, starting with Sunday, February 12th. And there would be 2 additional Sundays for Mr. Clapp. That would be a Sunday in the month of March and one in the month of April 2017. And for each Sunday, the hours would be 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Good evening. State your name for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Dan Clapp. I'm the owner of the 1634 Meadery.
How are we doing tonight, Dan?
Very good, thank you.
Good. Tell us about your little venture here.
We started our company about 2 years ago, and we make honey wine, which is called mead, also called mead. And we've been selling it at numerous farmers markets, and we actually participated here in Lowell last fall in a little wine festival that was put together, the Harvest Festival. And we did pretty well at it, introducing people to our mead, and I'm looking to expand markets in this direction. And this was put together as a Valentine's Day special by the market manager for the February 12th, and we decided to try and go ahead and do a couple more days at the farmer's market.
It went well the first time?
Yeah, we did very well. Yes.
Good, good.
Yep.
Questions, comments from the board?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Commissioner Donahue, seconded by Commissioner Krieger. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Dan, good luck. Wish
Thank you
well.
very much.
You bet.
Mr. Chairman, we also have a second application by the company known as La Cantina Winery Company, Robert Vozella, president, at 355 Union Street, Franklin, Mass. This also would be for the farm market at Mill Number 5, main corridor, 4th floor, 250 Jackson Street. Wine sales to be held 10 foot by 10 foot vendor space as assigned within the farmer's market. This would be starting Sunday, February 12th, and run consecutive Sundays to June 25th, 2017. The hours for each Sunday would be 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mr. Robert Vozella is not here this evening, but he has requested, and they have appeared or come here to this meeting, is Mr. Vozella's parents, who are Bob and Phyllis. If they will come to the podium, they're looking to speak on his behalf, and I think they can offer you some explanation as to the reason for their son's absence.
That's fine. State your name for the record.
Yes, Phyllis Vozella, and now my husband and I, Bob, we represent the La Cantina wine.
Okay, and your son is not here. You can explain.
Yes, he teaches Wentworth in Boston, and he could not take it off. He tried to get replacement, but he couldn't find it, so we offered to come up. And we are very involved on doing the wine farmers market. We did Franklin all summer, my husband and I. We did North Alborough, we did Rentham, and Natick. So we're very involved with him.
Okay. Secretary, when was Mr. Vozella have a license here in the city of Lowell prior?
No, what happened is as Mr. Clapp, gentleman just before noted, there was a special wine tasting that took place in October last year, and Mr. Vozella participated, and at that time, the basis for his absence was much to what Mrs. Vozella has just stated, and that Noel Powell, who is the owner and operator of Aaron Knapp Cellars, had spoke on his behalf to the commission, and so it was apparently, the event itself has been satisfactory. I did underscore the point with Mr. Vozella in communicating with him on emails. This is the issue of how sensitive it is for the board to meet with applicants. Initially, he was looking to have his spouse, Anna, cover for him. And he's apparently has a teaching program that is ongoing in the fall as well as now in the winter session, into spring, and teaches at night.
Okay. I did not have a chance to, I forgot to ask Mr. Clapp, where on the fourth floor the 10 by 10 area would be, and now we're
I
looking.
have his application if you want to look at it.
All right, and where would they be, and then the next applicant, a 10 by 10 area? So I'm coming off the elevator, I'm trying to get a vision of where they're gonna be set up.
This is assignment, too much paper.
Mr. and Mrs. Vazella, just to underscore what Secretary Wynn had just mentioned, that if your son does want to apply for another license in the future, it'd be advised by this board that he be here in presence.
He apologized
Okay.
that you couldn't make it.
All right, are you going to be present at the
Yes,
event?
yeah.
You
My
both will
husband-
be,
My
okay.
husband and I, yeah.
Deputy Superintendent Webb, you have any problems with this?
No, no problems, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, where are we here? Just make sure Martha and Joe get to see it too.
I can't speak for, this is 1634 Meadery where he'll be stationed.
Where's the elevator? Right there. So he's gonna be here, they're gonna be there, and then the other one was, that was Clapp, right?
Aaron Knapp is also situated in this area,
Okay,
and as well as,
all right, I know where they are, all right, I'm okay with that. And you need that, Mac, or you want to show Joe it? It's basically just another table set up in front of the storefront, right? Okay. I'm good, yeah. That's fine, okay, all right. Mac, anything?
At the beginning of the stores, storefronts,
what's that?
is where those, the setups are gonna be right off the elevators.
You have a motion on the floor?
Move approval?
Move approved by Commissioner McCarthy, seconded by Commissioner Howe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good luck with your event.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good luck.
Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, who made the motion? I'm sorry.
Commissioner McCarthy, seconded by Commissioner Howe.
Okay, thank you. Proceeding with number 3 on our meeting agenda with regard to application for special one-day license to sell, dispense malt beverages and wines only, or either one. Gabby Davis, made in Lowell, has filed application for a Winterfest footprint, which is consisting of the Lucy Larkin Park to the JFK Plaza. She'll be managing the microbrew showcase, which is only for the Winterfest on Friday evening, February 24th, 2017, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Also, Gabby, on behalf of Made in Lowell, has filed an application for an event to be held March 11, 2017, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Onyx Room at 122 Western Ave, Beards and Brews.
Good evening. State your name for the record.
Gabby Davis, Maiden Lowell.
How are you tonight, Gabby?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, good, good. You've had licenses for both of these events in the past, correct?
Not for Winterfest, but Beards and Brews, yes. It'll be our third year for Beards and Brews.
Okay. I know Secretary Wynn had forwarded the commission a walking route for the walk.
For the Winterfest footprint?
Yeah, so can you elaborate on that a little bit? And do we have a police detail? I'm just wondering, it seems to be an extensive amount of area to be walking around with alcoholic beverages, that's all.
Absolutely. I'll elaborate for what I know. So Winterfest is a city event, so the Cultural Affairs and Special Events Office are the event organizers. They would have more information according to them, and according to the map you have in front of you for the Winterfest footprint, there are barriers around the entire footprint, and there will be security and police detail on site hired through the event organizers. Maiden Lowell will be handling the Microbrew Showcase, and that's in its 6th year. This is a first time for Maiden Lowell to handle this event, but it's a craft beer tasting with 24 different breweries, and it's basically split up in half between Lucy Larcom Park and the JFK Plaza. And so it's the entire footprint, and it's kept in that footprint for this year. And they just want to be able to ensure that anybody that walks to and from some of these vendors will be outside and in tents. So,
Okay. Wristbands, what are we doing here? How are we controlling this? I know you just said police detail.
so the city is handling the ticketing for this event.
Okay.
According to my knowledge from what they told me, they have done every year with the Microbrew Showcase
Yep.
stamps.
Okay.
Typically, Maiden Lowell handles, for Maiden Lowell events, I always utilize the bracelet. City is handling the ticketing, so if you have any recommendations on that for them, to encourage them to use bracelets instead.
Deputy Superintendent Webb, would you like to elaborate? I've been working, she says the city is going to be handling a portion of this responsibility. Do you have any concerns?
Mr. Chairman, there's a great deal of planning that's going on that the police department is involved in. We are going to have several officers on detail, as well as several volunteers from the event staff that are going to help us control access to the different areas where people will be drinking. I'll know more in the next few days about whatever procedure is going to be used for identification purposes, whether it be a stamp or a bracelet. But all of these issues are being addressed.
Commissioner McCarthy?
Gabby, have you been sanctioned by the Winterfest Committee? Have you been approved by the Winterfest
Yes,
Committee?
yes,
Okay.
my application has been approved for the Microbrew Showcase portion.
Commissioner Donahue?
Are people going to be able to walk from Lucy Larcom Park along the bridge over the canal and then down carrying a drink, an alcoholic beverage?
So what this portion is, they're 2-ounce samples. So if they're carrying a 2-ounce sample, they're probably not going to get very far with it.
What I'm saying is you're going
But it is for the entire footprint, yes.
the whole yellow is going to be
absolutely.
walkable with a beer in your hand,
Yes, I think that's exactly how they want us to apply for the permit.
the city.
If I
Yes.
may, if I can just add to what Gabby has just proposed, since I had some conversation with some other city officials in this matter, and apparently it had taken place a year ago at the Winterfest. That is to say that visitors were allowed to carry containers of beer to varying different spots on the venue, which is defined as the Winterfest. And as you see the print, the yellow area defining that festival grounds, apparently it worked out favorably well. There were no incidents, certainly nothing that was brought to this board's attention, certainly not to my attention, and not to the board's attention as well. And so it's in keeping with the logistics of the various venues that are being available. And if, for example, if you were to look at the plan where one might be able to, for example, we will, just to give you a little heads up, we will be having several applicants coming before us at the next regular meeting, which is February 12th. So they'll be looking to sell 12-ounce containers or something of that size to their visitors. And it would not be practical for somebody with a 2-ounce cup to be moving from Lucy Larcom to JFK, but certainly somebody who's holding a 12-ounce container would be more inclined to want to go to the a venue at Lucy Larcom, and then also to go to a place over by the JFK Civic Center. And so, as Deputy Superintendent Webb has noted, obviously security and ensuring that the visitors who are carrying these containers of beer are going to be monitored and making sure that they're not doing anything that we would consider, what might be considered illegal acts, that is handing off containers to somebody else who's in their company or moving it in another way. So I think there's a lot that the city is taking upon itself to try to improve the atmosphere of the event and the venue. And I think the commission can only look to, in keeping with our city ordinance, which prohibits public drinking, if the city is so inclined to want to allow for this, then the commission would be looked upon to approve the licensing of it in terms of the venue itself, so that it would be a space that is not typical of outside venues, but it is something the city is looking to try to see if it.
So Gabby, how is this gonna work now? They're gonna pay X amount of money to come into the brewery?
So the Microbrew Showcase is a ticketed event. I think tickets are on sale right now for $30. I think the day of it's $35.
What do they get, a glass when they come in?
So there'll be sample cups at each brewery
Oh, okay.
that is providing the samples.
Okay.
And there'll be 18 sample tickets provided to a ticketed attendee.
Okay.
My feeling
Thank
is
you.
if Deputy Superintendent Webb has no reservations about this, then I would feel that the board would approve. Do I have a motion on the floor?
Move to approve.
Move for approval by Commissioner Krieger, seconded by Commissioner McCarthy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Gabby, good luck as always.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You as well.
Proceeding with the next applicant, we have Tabitha Garnett, who's catering manager for Aramark. She's accompanied by Nadine Soma, and representing the company as well. She's a general manager. Tabitha has filed applications for an event at the Alumni Hall, 84 University Ave. It's a kickoff event for Making Waves, Thursday, February 2nd, 2017, from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. A second application for an event at the Allen House Gallery at 2 Solomon Way, the John Cagg reading and book signing at Thursday, February 9th, 2017, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. An event at the ETIC Atrium at 40 University Ave, the Plastics 4.0. That would be Thursday, February 23rd, from 11 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And last is an event at the University Crossing 220 Pawtucket Street, an Enable fundraiser event, which will be also Thursday, February 23rd, 2017, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Good evening. State your name for record.
Tabitha Garnett. Nadine Soma.
You here to babysit Tabitha tonight, Nadine, or
I took over for Tracy, so I'm just
coming by to say hi? All right.
I read that.
Questions, comments on the board?
I did read it in there.
Who's John Cagg?
that I'm not sure, but it's just the English department put it together as he's an author, so he's going to be reading from his book and doing a book signing,
Move approval.
but I've not read his book.
Move for approval by Commissioner McCarthy, seconded by Commissioner Howe. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Tabitha, good luck. Nadine?
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
Next, we have Patricia Donahue of Gallery Z, 167 Market Street, for an event, Jesse and Jamie performance, Saturday, February 11th, 2017, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Good evening. State your name for the record.
Patricia Donahue.
What's going on at the gallery for this event?
On that night, we have Jessica Cohen and Jamie, her husband, I forget his last name. They're going to play music in the cafe for a couple of hours, and we'd like to be able to serve the customers beer and wine for that period of time.
Okay, we've never had a problem with you holding any licenses. Questions or comments on the board? Move for approval by Commissioner Howe, seconded by Commissioner Donahue. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Patricia, good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We now have Allison Turcott of Mill Number 5, 250 Jackson Street. She has a series of applications. starting with the first would be for the 4th and 5th floors, Love Buzz 4 Marketplace, Saturday, February 4th, 2017, from 12 noon to 11 p.m. Also, for an event on the 4th floor, Innovation Nights, Wednesday, February 15th, 2017, from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Allison also has an event for the 4th and 5th floors of Mill Number 5, 250 Jackson Street, Pulp and Press 4 Marketplace, Saturday, March 4th, 2017, 12 noon to 11 p.m. And there's an application for the 4th and 5th floors at 250 Jackson Street for the Thread and Groove 4 Marketplace, Saturday, April 1st, from 12 noon to 11 p.m. And last, for the 4th and 5th floors, is the Diggs 4 Marketplace, Saturday, May 6, 2017, 12 noon to 11 p.m.
Sorry, state your name for the record.
Allison Turcott.
How are you doing tonight, Allison?
Good, how are you?
All right, you have quite a few events here. I guess my only question to you is entertainment-wise, are you having entertainment as well?
Nope.
None at all. So this is, can you just explain briefly the five?
Yeah, so we do marketplace events, and they all have a different theme, so that's what those are. There's a Valentine's Day one, pulp and presses, records, and like stationery. The Innovation Nights is a new thing. I think it's basically like an innovation mixer where like the shop owners and stuff will come together.
Where are you going to station the bar?
Do you know what?
So I'm coming off the elevator, where am I going?
Directly on the edge of Vinyl Destination, right in that like seating area that was
Okay.
the hi-hat.
All right, basically where they usually have the,
Yeah.
all the time there. Okay. Questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Donahue, please.
Are these all with the shop owners being involved in each one of these, or is some of these your own creation?
The shops are always open during them, but we bring in other vendors. So it's
Okay.
the shops plus vendor tables that are all set up.
Okay, but it's just typical of the Mill Number 5 type of businesses?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Move for approval by Commissioner McCarthy, seconded by Commissioner Krieger. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, we have Susanna Silva for an event at 739 Central Street, a dinner reception for the committee from Azores, Saturday, February 11th, 2017, 7 p.m. to 12 midnight.
Good evening. State your name for the record.
Susanna Silva.
How are you, Susanna?
Good, and you?
Good. Have you held one of these licenses before?
No, sir.
All right. Do you understand your responsibilities with this license?
Yes, I do.
Secretary Wynn's gone over everything, the
Yes.
do's and don'ts, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Understand if there's an emergency, who do you call?
The police.
All right. Better than Ghostbusters. That's good. Wish of the board. Move for approval by Commissioner Howe, seconded by Commissioner Donahue. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good luck with your event.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
On the second side of our meeting agenda, we have Kathleen Neville of Budget Buddies, Inc. for an event at UTEX, 35 Warren Street, called Luna Fest, a short film festival, Budget Buddies fundraiser for Friday, March 3rd, 2017, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Good evening. State your name for the record.
Kathleen Neville, Budget Buddies.
How are you, Kathleen?
Good, thanks.
What's going on that night?
So we've moved our annual fundraiser from Chelmsford to Lowell. At UTEC, it's our first time doing a Luna Fest. Luna Fest is a short film festival curated by the makers of the Luna sports bar. And what they do is they take short films made by and about women. And so this year it's a selection of 9 short films on a variety of topics that total 90 minutes. So we're doing a showing of that and then having a silent auction, a balloon raffle, and a bar.
Sounds great. How many people are you expecting?
We're hoping for 200 to 250.
All right. How many does this place hold?
With the way we want it seated, 200 to 250, but more that allows for the reception walking area and stuff
Right.
too. So.
Deputy Superintendent Webb, any problems? Complaint?
No, no problems.
Thank you. Board? Move for approval by Commissioner Krieger, seconded by Commissioner Donahue. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Wish you the best luck.
Thank you.
All right.
Last we have is Molly Cartigue, 161 Jackson Street, LWW, the Woman in the Mix event for Thursday, March 9th, 2017, 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Good evening, state your name for the record.
Good evening, my name is Malika Ting.
Hey Malika, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. What's going on for your event?
So I'm partnering with Lowell General Hospital, the Greater Lowell Health Alliance, and also Enterprise Bank. That week for March 9th is Lowell Women's Week, and in conjunction with that, we're going to be doing a Women in the Mix for Lowell Women's Week over at the health center on our 6th floor.
Great. How many people are you expecting?
We would like to have a lot, but 50 to 60 people is a good turnout as well. So this is our first time actually doing this. So
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank
Questions or comments from the board?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Commissioner McCarthy, seconded by Commissioner Krieger. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Malika, best of luck in the first.
thank you very much.
All right. Sure, if you want. That's fine.
Thank you, Ryan.
Proceeding with the next agenda item, we have the application by the Portuguese American Center, Inc., all alcoholic beverages club licensee at 59 Charles Street, for change of its manager of record. Proposed new manager is Anna de Medeiros, and she's present.
Good evening. State your name for the record.
Anna Medeiros.
How are you?
Good, how are you guys?
Good, good, good. So you want to be the manager, correct?
Yes, I thought about it for a while, and Manny asked me, and it's been something. It's a great opportunity for me.
Tell us about yourself.
I've been working at the Portuguese American Center for about 4 years. I've been involved in the community as well, with the church, the club.
You've been bartending for a while?
Yeah, about 4 years, a little
Yeah.
bit over.
Secretary Winters forwarded us some information concerning notice of hearings that you'll be going in front of the ABCC.
Okay,
Are you aware of that?
yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? if I
Yes,
may,
please.
Attorney Karen Samail is representing the Portuguese American Center before the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. As you can see from documents that the License Commission Office has been receiving in the last several years, Portuguese American Center has had issues with gaming on the premises. ABC investigators have gone on site and have had a thorough discussion with the manager of record today, who is Manuel Pai, and this took place about 3 years ago. So the thinking, I believe, is that now that the licensee is now scheduled again to go back before the Alcohol Beverages Control Commission for another hearing on a disciplinary matter, it's an attempt on the part of the licensee to show good faith in anticipating and changing its practices. And I think proposed new manager is an indication of that.
Has the ABC rendered a decision from the November 1st meeting with the ABCC?
They did render a decision, and it was a 10-day suspension. And what's interesting about the state is, whereas cities and towns are not permitted to do so, in lieu of the 10-day suspension the club was to have served for gaming violations, they ended up paying a fine of over $2,000 in lieu of the suspension.
In lieu of 10-day
Of
suspension?
the suspension. And now there is, apparently that wasn't sufficient, because the club then got cited again in 2015 for a violation. And the hearing has been continued several times and scheduled now for April.
This is this one. So I'm confused a little bit, I apologize. I see the May 4th correspondence from the ABC concerning the $2,600 in suspension. Then they were supposed to have a hearing in front of the ABCC on November 1st of 2016.
It was continued.
It was continued.
It was continued. Now it's rescheduled for April.
Okay, all right, so it's the same, okay.
This is a new complaint.
I got it, yep.
Ryan, what was the recent violation for? Was it gaming?
Oh, yes, that's the problem that the club has been dealing with and in which past practices has been to use the poker machines that they have license for, or had license for. They no longer have the poker machines. This was a means to allow members and guests to utilize the devices and in a very methodical way could score points and redeem those points for cash.
Maybe legal counsel can answer a quick question for me. So when they go in front of the ABCC again, but then, let's say tonight we okay Anna to be the manager, what happens with the prior management? Is there any ramifications with the prior management, and should we okay the transfer of license tonight in lieu of the complaint going in front of the ABCC?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. So it wouldn't have any bearing on any disciplinary matter for those owners at the time. They would still be either liable or not for their actions. I do think that showing that the change of management would help their case, but it also helps their situation here in Lowell. I think that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Willow. Questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Krieger.
Executive Secretary Wynn, am I to understand that the offense that we're concerned about happened in May of 2016, and they're not going to get around to the hearing until April? 11 months later?
I think that was a yes.
Because it's a matter before the Alcohol Beverages Control Commission, and because the state ABC deals with every city and town in Massachusetts, and they have hearings every week. So when there is a request for a continuance, the facts don't change of the alleged violation, I should say, but when there's a request for a continuance, the ABC will be more than willing to continue it. I think initially when this complaint was first served upon the licensee, there was no legal counsel. And so as a follow-up, when there is finally the licensee goes and seeks out counsel, in the case now we have noted in the communications attorney, Karen Samail, that attorney might want to continue the matter, allow for a little more time and prepare. And when there is possibly like 50 or 60 other hearings scheduled that the ABC has to address, a continuance is, 6 months is not to them, apparently it's not a problem, it's not an issue.
Well, I was confused because it says continued from 7 July 2017. That seems pretty far in the future.
I think there's a typo in somewhere in one of those
You think
communications.
that's a typo? I hope so. Well, the treasurer is going to change the rules for, maybe that'll speed this up. I'm in favor of allowing the change in license.
Commissioner Howe?
Yes. Who was the current manager?
Manuel Page.
And was he the manager during the time
Yes,
of
he's
these
still-
violations?
Yep.
And what's your relationship, if any, to him?
Not, and I just was an employee there.
And is he still going to be working there?
Nah, not that I know of, no. He wants to just let all his responsibilities go and pass them all over to me, I guess.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Donahue, anything?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
It indicates here that you've been there since, an employee since 2013.
Yes.
That kind of coincides with when there were violations discovered by the ABC investigators.
Yeah, but I was just a bartender, just tending the bars, helping the tables.
And there was a separate area where whatever was going on was going on?
Manager took care of that. We didn't get involved with anything.
Okay, thank you.
That just touched a nerve with me.
I'm
I
sorry.
I have an added question.
Yes.
You were bartending that night?
The day I probably wasn't.
Oh, okay.
No,
I thought
I wasn't.
you said you were there when
part-time, and then,
you were not the bartender when the ABCC came into the
No, I
club.
haven't been, no.
Okay, great, all right. You understand the responsibilities you have here, right?
I do.
Understand, obviously, the concern the board has with
Absolutely.
past practice. I would go with legal counsel that we probably would, to see a new owner, a new manager of record, and go from there. Any other additional comments from the board? No? We have a motion on the floor?
I move approval.
Moved by Commissioner Krieger, seconded by Commissioner McCarthy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Anna, I will be sending your application to Boston for the ABC's approval. So it
Okay.
may take time. There may be some further review, obviously, with the ABC and the investigator.
I understand. All right, thank you very much.
Anna, just a final thing.
I'm sorry.
Tip certified?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commission will now proceed with a public hearing, number 5 on the meeting agenda. The public hearing is on an application by an entity known as Flavor Grill LLC, doing business as Flavor Grill, Kelvin Peralta, managing member, for a malt beverages and wine only restaurant license for premises at 415 Lawrence Street. There are 3 rooms, 2 entrances, 3 exits. Proposed occupancy is 48, and the square footage is 2,000 square feet. A legal notice is published in the Lowell Sun newspaper on January 13, 2017. The applicant was required to notify abutters, property owners touching and across the street. It is requested that Kelvin Peralta be approved as the manager of record for Flavor Grill LLC. Also, Flavor Grill has filed applications for a license for common vitler and for entertainment and a licensed restaurant for live music, disc jockey, and jukebox.
Good evening, gentlemen. State your name for the record.
Good evening, Attorney Michael Zame, here representing Flavor Grill LLC, with the proposed manager of record next to me, Mr. Kelvin Peralta.
Who did you say you were?
Who am I?
Yeah.
Attorney Michael Zame.
Don't even look like the guy I saw a few months ago. You look great.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations on that. Secretary Wynn, all the paperwork in order?
Yes, Attorney Zame's office had mailed out the proper notices to the property owners touching, a list of abutters, and the affidavit signed by Attorney Zame and witnessed by notary, proof that the nailing had done in a timely way.
Attorney Zame, can you tell us something about your manager of record here?
I sure can. You may be familiar with this. This restaurant used to be a pizza place on the, just on Lawrence Street, just as you go down across from the Whipple, and there's the liquor store across the street, and then it was a pizza place. Mr. Peralta, probably over a year ago, took on the endeavor of, and a lot of this was work that he did on it, on his own. Started, did some work on it, made some improvements on the inside of the building. Then opened up a restaurant. Started with, he's a native of the Dominican Republic. There's a lot of Dominican flavor to the menu. And he made a go of it. And interestingly enough, he's invested a lot of his own. And if you look at how he came up with the financing for this, he works for Pepsi, Pepsi Cola, a bottling company. He took some money from his retirement account to be able to invest in this, loan from his retirement to invest in this. He also took, he's the owner of a cleaning business, and he took a loan from his cleaning business to help him come up with the financing to do all the stuff he needed to do for the restaurant. The restaurant has, thankfully taken off for him, but what he found almost immediately when upon serving his customers that they were inquiring, can I get a glass of wine with my dinner, or can I have, is there a beer and, beer, can I get a beer with my dinner? So at that point, after, seeing that that was a call for it, for his restaurant, he decided to, come forward and present an application to the local license commission, obviously first, to be able to serve beer and wine to the customers on the premises.
Mr. Peralta, tip certified, plans to be?
He is in the process of doing that. Anybody that is going to be involved in serving, whether they be waitresses or a bartender, and again, it's not really going to be a bar situation. It's more to be able to have it to serve to customers. There's not a actual bar where you'd sit down and have a drink at the bar. It's tables, so it's table service. So they all will be tip certified. He didn't want to put the cart before the horse, and he serves safe and all the things that go along with the service of the food industry that he's dealing with right now, but he hasn't gotten to the point of, he didn't want to put the cart before the horse, so he's going to see that that gets taken care of, and they all will be tip certified prior to actually going forward with the service of alcohol.
Good to know. Commissioner McCarthy?
Is that right next door to L&M Springs?
Yes, it is.
That's the one right there. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Howell, Commissioner Donahue, anything further? Commissioner Krieger, anything?
No.
How's business so far, Mr. Peralta?
It's good.
Doing well?
Doing well.
Very good. I'm sorry, did somebody have
I
a?
believe Commissioner Donahue.
Commissioner
Actually, I
Donahue,
did have one
apologize.
quick question. I went by today. It looks much better than the old dark area that was there. But how long have you been with the restaurant?
We opened on July 11th, so about like 6 months.
6 months, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did see the investment that you've made, so obviously he's taking this quite seriously. You understand the responsibility you have here with this license, though, okay?
I do, sir.
All right. Move for approval by Commissioner McCarthy. Seconded by Commissioner Krieger. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you
Mr.
very
Peralta,
much.
good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zane.
Thank you.
Committee with number 6 on our meeting agenda, on the conduct as charged by William M. Superintendent of Police. Communication dated November 30th, 2016. Again, licensee, the Middle Street Village, Inc., doing business as the Village Smokehouse, 9298. Alan F. Kaplan, manager of record, the all-alcoholic beverage restaurant licensee.
Good evening, Council. State your name for the record and the other gentleman behind you.
Good evening. My name is John Hardigan. I represent the Village, or the Middle Street Village, Inc., DBA Village Smokehouse. With me this evening is Alan Kaplan and Tim Kelleher. I think they're both known to you. They're co-owners. Mr. Kelleher was the manager that evening and was present. Also with us is Chad DiRaggio. I don't think Mr. DiRaggio has been before the board before. He's a 9-year employee. If there would be a term of a head of security, it would be Mr. DiRaggio, but I think that label goes with Mr. Kelleher. He's 41 years old. He's a mechanic by trade. He owns his own auto body shop, but he works there on a regular basis.
Okay. Would you like to complain right into the record,
No,
Counselor?
thank you. No,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other further comments from you, or would you just waiting for questions or comments from the board? Anything you'd like to
Yeah,
add?
I'd like to at least focus, if we could, focus the issue, if that's all right, Mr. Chairman.
That's fine.
Thank
That's
you.
fine.
Good evening, and again, let me begin. I wish to thank the board for accommodating my personal schedule last time for a 2-week continuance, and for that, I apologize.
Thank you for saying
Thank you.
that.
You guys can sit if you want to. It's going to be a bit. So there's no surprises. Our position is that there was one incident that night. It was one continuous incident, which involved Ibby and the eventual arrest of Mr. Santiago. And Mr. Kelleher is here, and I asked Mr. DeRaggio to be here, because they have firsthand information, and what they will do is to say they were present during the entire evening. But, to begin with, there's two charges. One is the violation of 1.116, which is the manager's responsibilities. I assume the focus there is the allowance of an illegality, i.e. the fight. And the second is an asserted violation of section 1.20, which is the failure to notify the police. And if I could just take a second to focus the board on, the provisions of 116, manager's responsibilities, and those are threefold. First one, just reading from your rules, it says, the manager shall at all times maintain order and decorum in the premises and in all immediately surrounding areas. The second is, the manager shall cooperate in all ways with city officials, ensuring safety and order in the facility. And the third one is, and I would suggest pertinent to the matter at hand, is that the manager shall ensure that there shall be no disorder, indecency, prostitution, lewdness, illegal gambling, misconduct, or any other disturbance permitted on the licensed premises. I would suggest to this commission that the triggering word on that is permitted. Now, I think when you get to gambling, i.e. poker machines, it's pretty easy. When you get to prostitution or narcotics, the sale of narcotics, that's pretty easy. But I think when you get to a fight or a disturbance or a pushing match, the standard that the court has set is that if the establishment, the license holder, takes reasonable steps to prevent harm, then their responsibility is discharged. Now, I was here the evening that the Crown, there was an issue with the Crown, and I sat through a video, and I know that there was some comments by this board that it's, and I'm paraphrasing, or not even paraphrasing, but I think the gist of it was that that's a nasty situation, but those things, you can't guarantee the safety. So I would suggest, and I'm sure your assistant city solicitors would concur with me, is the standard is that they have an affirmative duty to take steps to attempt to prevent the harm. So just the very fact that someone unfortunately gets hurt or there is a fight doesn't necessarily mean, and in fact the court says it doesn't, that you've permitted a disturbance or an illegality. So if at this point, what the license holder has is the report of Patrolman Comtois involving when Mr. Ibby came the next day. And as to the incident, I would suggest, and I'd like to just review some pertinent parts of it, that the smokehouse did exactly what they should have done. And again, if I could take a minute just to read from the report. And it says later, and again, this is Patrolman Comtois, I believe he's a good patrolman, report that summarizes reported to him. And what his says is, later into the evening, he and his friends were walking through the bar and were bumped into by a group of unknown females. At this time, the unknown females began pushing his friend. In an attempt to quell the issue, Alex got in between the two groups and tried to stop the fracas. In doing so, security personnel intervened shortly thereafter and ordered all involved to leave the bar. At about the same time, an unknown male raised his cell phone into Alex's face in what he believes was an attempt to take his picture. Alex stated that he put his hands up to block the shot and made his way to the exit as directed by security. While walking out, Alex was struck blindside by an unknown person in the left eye and subsequently fell to the ground, temporarily losing consciousness. Alex stated when he finally came to, he was being escorted out of the bar by security. Now, I'd suggest to the board that except for the knucklehead who blindsides Mr. Ibby on the way out, the security staff did exactly what they were trained to do. There's no evidence that there was any interaction between these groups beforehand, so they had no warning that this would erupt into anything. I'd suggest that if, as I said, if this unknown male, I'd call him a knucklehead, didn't take the swing at him, everybody would have been escorted out the door, and that would have been the end of it. Now, but we know more about this because the report continues and it says, now this is Patrolman Comtois, inquired if security, the smokehouse, made attempts to offer medical treatment or alert police. Now it's voluntarily offered by Patrolman Comtois, I'm assuming after looking at the records, that there were numerous officers in the downtown area. to which Alex states he was not offered any treatment and was instructed not to contact police by numerous employees of the bar. Alex went on to state he left and returned home. Now, based upon the report, Mr. Ibby lives in Nashua. Now, Mr. Kelleher and Mr. DeRaggio are going to say that's not our policy. What they're going to say is that we were there the entire time. We saw the security usher people to the door. We saw the bump. Yes, there was some swings. Yes, there was some fighting. No one ever hit the ground. We don't know Mr. Ibby. We don't believe he's a regular. If we had seen anybody on the ground, we would have attended to him. Secondly, though, I'm suggesting that this doesn't necessarily make sense. I mean, if I'm a 24-year-old man, I'm sober because he says he's a designated driver, and I get walloped in the eye, and I walk out of an establishment, and assumedly there's numerous police, based upon the report, there's numerous police officers downtown, I think the normal reaction is to say, Mr. Officer with the badge, let's go find the guy that did this to me. But that's not what Mr. Ibby does. He apparently says these unknown employees say, don't talk to the police, so he, being sober, thinks that makes sense and gets into the car. So I'm just saying that, to me, just doesn't pass the sniff test. Finally, just on that issue, continuing, I think the balance of the report indicates the position the police took on this, meaning that, I mean, we've all read enough police reports, some on this commission more than others, but it says, and again, Officer Comtois, I was able to see to view Alex's left eye, which was bruised and swollen about an appeared sore. Detective Reed, CIB, which we all know as Criminal Investigation Bureau, was requested to photograph the wound should the same be required for any future alcohol commission hearing / review. It doesn't say, Detective Reed, Criminal Investigation Bureau, was requested to photograph the wound should the same be required for any future criminal prosecutions for assault and battery. Additionally, the report says this officer requests a copy of the report be forwarded to Deputy Webb, liaison to the city's Alcohol Beverage Commission for review. Again, it doesn't say someone ought to go down and talk to the smokehouse. Someone ought to go down and see if anybody knows this guy. Somebody ought to go down and view the tapes that they have. Is this commission, and I'm sure the police department is aware, they keep a tape that runs for 7 days. This happened in the vestibule. I mean, it would have assisted this commission's investigation. It would have potentially assisted any investigation the police has done. This incident happens on the 21st. We don't get notice until we receive the letter dated December 21st. So our ability, to some degree, to defend ourselves and or to support what I anticipate their testimony to be is now gone. I don't know if the board has any questions before I move on to the asserted violation of Section 120.
You can continue if you like.
All right. Again, and I appreciate the time the board's given me, but if we just go back, and that's a much shorter rule. Rule .1220, that talks about illegal activities. And what that says, and I'm just reading the pertinent part of it, it says, all licensees for the sale and service of alcoholic beverages shall notify the Lowell Police Department immediately by telephone or otherwise when any violation of law, disorder, disturbance is taking place or is about to take place on the licensed premises. Now, that, of course, is read in conjunction with the back end of 116, which says, in all instances where the police are called to the licensed premises, regardless of the extent or severity of any incident involving people in the premises, the licensee must submit a report to the Lowell License Commission. And it should be in the file, but the very next morning, Mr. Kelleher sent an email to Mr. Wynn describing an incident which I would suggest parenthetically it fairly describes the incident that Mr. Comtois talks, people being ushered out in the vestibule. Now, Mr. Kelleher has no knowledge that we're going to be before the board, but he writes the very next morning at 11:40 a.m., 2 patrons, 1 female and 1 male, got into an altercation in the vestibule. When the doorman tried to separate the parties, the male threw a punch at the doorman. The police officer was on duty on the sidewalk, tried to calm the male down. When he wouldn't stop being aggressive towards the officer, he was arrested. Now, when I read Patrolman Comptois's report, I noticed that he said that he had read the CAD reports and there was no evidence of a call at 12:30 because that's the time that Mr. Ibby says that this occurred. Mr. Kelleher's note on November 12th says that it occurred at approximately 1:10 a.m. In the police report, which Patrolman Comptois references, says there was an incident at 1:30 a.m. So I would suggest, except for the timing identified on the report, the incidents are the same. Now, I was provided a copy of Officer Hanson's report. Now, this is the report that Mr. Comptos, and I've got copies for the board, I don't know if they've seen it or not, but this is the report that Patrolman Comptos says, I've looked at the CADs, there's not a call from the smokehouse, which we don't dispute. But again, focusing on the rule, it says or otherwise, and those are your rules, so we can notify him otherwise. And there was an arrest on Middle Street, but I don't think it was connected. And if I could, again, just read, and I've got copies of this report. I don't know if the commission has seen it.
Secretary Wynn, did we have a copy of Officer Hanson's?
It's upstairs in the law office. I can get one if you like, get it.
Councilor Hardigan, could I have a copy? Would you have multiple copies or just one? You have one? Please.
You're looking,
No, from Officer Hanson.
oh, the police, you have,
I know we have Officer Comto.
And again, reading the pertinent part of
Just give us a second,
Yep.
Council. Deputy Superintendent Webb, can you shed some light on this? This is two different, look at this report, this just says 1:30.
Right.
Council Hardigan, can you shed some light, or Deputy Superintendent?
Well,
Go ahead, Deputy.
Mr. Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, we're dealing with two separate incidents.
Okay.
They are at least 20 minutes apart if Mr. Hardigan's time frame is correct. I think they might be as much as an hour apart. I have no indication that the incidents are related. Mr. Ibby he could clear that up, whether he knows this other party or not. But I don't believe the incidents are related. And if we're to make the assumption that they are the same incident, it would seem to me that it's over quite an extended period of time. And if it's the same incident, why weren't the police called at the beginning of the incident?
Before I let Mr. Hardigan speak, Mr. Whirlock, do you have anything to add? No? Go ahead, Council.
Sorry,
Go
Chairman.
ahead,
I would just also add that looking at the Hanson police report, there is no victim mentioned, which
Right.
would be Mr. Alex Ibby, who's come to talk today. So I think that's also worth noting.
All right, thank you. Councilor, go ahead. Yes.
If I could add one more thing, Mr. Chairman. The reason we have a report at all on the second incident is not because the police got a call that there was a problem there. It was a police officer observed what was going on and intervened and made an arrest. So that's why that part of
So it looks like two
activities-
distinct incidents here.
I would submit they're two distinct incidents.
You good with that, Counselor?
No.
You're not? Go ahead.
Absolutely not. I
Go
mean,
ahead.
I think if you read the reports, if you take out the time, the only thing that's significantly different is the time. Mr. Ibby says it happens at 12:30. Mr. Kelleher's report says, if, for lack of a better term, notice to the commission says it happens at approximately 1:10. In the police department's, the incident report says 1:30. But they're all, now I'm not suggesting that Mr. Ibby was involved in the fight that Mr. Santiago got arrested for. The way I read the report, Mr. Santiago, again, acted inappropriately, and that's why Mr. DiRaggio is here. As referenced in the report, what he's going to tell you is that he grabs this Mr. Santiago at the time unknown to him, pulls him out, he's holding him, and Officer Hanson and the lieutenant intervene and take custody. He keeps fighting, and they throw the cuffs on him. But if you read the report, it's a pushing and shoving with a female. That's what Sergeant or Patrolman Comptois's report said, except for the time. You read this report, it's the same incident. The only difference is the time. One other point, if I could.
You may.
Mr. Kelleher and Mr. DiRaggio are going to tell you that there was one incident that night. And it was this incident. It was because, again, one's kind of on the inside on the bar, the other one's kind of on the outside when it first starts, and they're getting them out, the person blindsides it, it erupts, that's when the shoving goes, and apparently Mr. Santiago somehow takes offense to it and continues with his irrational behavior resulting in his arrest. But that's why we didn't notify the police, because we physically delivered him to them, and we wouldn't have sent the notice if we didn't call the police, because there's no requirement to send the notice. You can't have one without the other. And it couldn't be after the fact, because we don't hear about this until 6 weeks later. And again, if you look at the standard that the court says, you have to take reasonable steps to prevent harm.
Okay. While Mr. Hardigan's up there, yield some questions to Commissioner Krieger.
Yes, sir. I'm not sure how you've tied Mr. Santiago in with the other person.
With Mr. Ribby?
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying
Are you
that-
saying they're the same person?
No.
Are you saying Mr. Santiago's the one that threw the punch?
No, I don't
How
have...
is this tied together?
I'm saying this is all the same incident. What happens is Mr. Ibby is involved with the pushing match in the bar with two distinct groups. The security force then ushers everybody to the vestibule. And as in Officer Hanson's report, says a fight starts in the vestibule. And that was a result of everybody getting moved into the vestibule. And as I said, I have no information that there's any connection between Mr. Santiago and Mr. Ibby. I mean, I don't think there is. I don't have any basis. But he was in the vestibule when everybody was ushered in there. Whether he took offense to that, I don't know what it is, Mr. Krieger. But no, I'm not saying that Mr. Santiago and Mr. Ibby even met during the night. I'm saying, though, that there was one incident, ushered into the vestibule, the thing blows up. Mr. Kelleher will tell you that he actually went across the street and he said, we've got a guy in here that's a problem. And that's when they came over. Mr. DiRaggio physically delivers him to the officer. And they end up cuffing him.
Counsel, who was ushering them into the vestibule?
The security force. And what they're trained to do is when there's a disruption, because there's, again, someone's trying to take photos and there's pushing it back, what they've been trained to do is to work slowly, soft voices, but to separate the groups, and to usher them out and the only exit is through this vestibule.
And how many security people would there have been on duty, ballpark?
That night? I can tell you exactly. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in Mr. Kelleher, 9. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bartenders.
So while they were trying to get these people into the vestibule, nobody from security saw anybody throw a punch at this gentleman?
No, there was punches. Nobody saw anybody on the ground unconscious. There was a fracas, as Mr. Ibby, and I'm using his word, So there's pushing and shoving, and I'm assuming words exchange. Mr. Kelleher and Mr. DiRaggio can fit in on that. But what they're saying is that they're not personally familiar with Mr. Ibby, to my knowledge, based upon the photographs. You know, they've looked at it and said, he doesn't look like a regular to me. But there was pushing and shoving that erupted that resulted in the police arresting Mr. Santiago. But it was, everybody was moving. It's like getting into an elevator, Mr. McCarthy. You don't know who's in there and something happens. But that, so they're all in this vestibule.
But if you have 8 security people there and nobody noticed that, what went on there?
No, nobody noticed him hit the ground. We don't believe that he hit the ground. Certainly people were swinging and certainly people got hit. And I don't think we're denying that.
Okay.
So you're stating that there were numerous punches by numerous patrons?
I don't know the numbers. I know there was pushing and shoving. I'm sure Mr. Kelleher, and I'm not suggesting that there was, I don't know, but I'm saying that there was a lot of people in a room, in a vestibule, apparently, because, and the reason that was typically they control the in and out, but because there was that incident in the bar between Mr. Ibby and his friend and assumedly some unknown girl and some other guy that was trying to take a picture, the security made the decision, and I would suggest it's a reasonable decision, to take this group of individuals out. So when that group of individuals, and I'm not, again, suggesting that they know Mr. Santiago, when that got into it, the pot started to stir, and they controlled it as best as they could. But it is the same incident.
Commissioner Howe, Commissioner Donahue? Commissioner Howe.
You said that security, when something happens like this, security is trained to usher the people out of the bar. Is that what you said?
Well, depending upon the situation. I mean, and again, I would ask that maybe Mr. DiRaggio, but in this particular incident, because, is my understanding, the location to the door, they took, and I'm not suggesting everybody, so they took a group, basically what they want to do is separate potential combatants. So they then take a group of people and move them to an area which is separate and apart. I think that's just common sense, Commissioner Howe. They're separate and apart from whoever there was in exchange with. And I think what Mr. DiRaggio and Mr. Kelleher would tell you is that the closest area was that vestibule.
Well, can we ask them the questions?
Sure.
Hi, Tim Kelleher.
Were you there on the night in question?
I was.
And at approximately, well, at closing time, was there an incident that caused you to cause security to push the people out the vestibule?
There was pushing and shoving that night, and the people in there were pushing and shoving. It was also, 2 months ago, and so to the best of my knowledge, we got the groups separated that night. Usually we break the 2 groups up. We get one group out the door. I usually walk outside and make sure they leave the sidewalk and they're not waiting outside to jump somebody. And then we escort the other group out. On this particular night, they got into the vestibule, and this girl and this gentleman were just going back and forth. And then Chad, tried to get the guy out the door. The guy wouldn't go. I ran across the street, saw Lieutenant Psyops and Chris Hansen, and said, "Hey, we got a problem over here." And then they ran across the street.
So earlier in the evening, what time was that?
I put down approximately 1:10, so my guess is that's what time it was.
Is that closing time?
We typically lock the doors at 1:15, and then at 1:30, lights are on, and everybody's out usually by 1:45.
So I know the witness is here and we'll be questioning him, but according to his statement to the police, the incident that happened to him was at approximately 12:30. Do you recall any incident happening in the bar at approximately 12:30 a.m.?
The only thing I remember is just that one incident that night. If there was another incident, I don't know about it, and I certainly would have filed an incident report while I was doing the other one.
You said that when a fight breaks out, you try to break up the parties. So how is it that the 2 people in the vestibule were, it seems like a fight was breaking out and the fight was being pushed out the bar?
If I had to guess, the girl that I remember that night was a little wound up, and we were trying to get the gentleman out the door. And if I had to guess, I would say the girl snuck past one of the other security guards and started yelling at the gentleman.
When you say a little wound up, was she drunk?
I don't believe so. I don't know.
And is this other gentleman, was he there?
Yeah.
I guess that's all I have for him. I don't know if you...
Commissioner Donahue.
Thank you. Maybe council could answer the question. You've read Officer Comtois' report. Indicated at approximately 12:30.
Right.
Mr. Ibby and friends were walking through the bus. This indicates to me that there was an incident. There was a bumping into a group of unknown females. This appears to have been in the bar, in a deeper part of the establishment as opposed to right by the vestibule.
No, I'm sure that either Mr. Kelleher or Mr. DiRaggio could clarify exactly what it was. But again, it's my understanding that this incident, they saw it and they said, we've got to diffuse, separate, get one side out. So how close it was to the actual vestibule, but that's where it ended up. One side ended up in the vestibule.
So I guess my question would be, is there's no recollection by anyone from the bar that there was an inner disturbance?
No, I think what Mr. Kelleher said, Mr. Donahue, and he can clarify this, I think what he said is that he was aware of one incident that night, and that was the pushing and shoving inside the bar that ended up with people in the vestibule, which ended up with Mr. Santiago getting arrested. But it was one and the same inch. What they're saying is that 12:30 is not the accurate time. You read the reports, they're all the same incident.
I'm just going to object. I think your question was to the witnesses and not to counsel for the witnesses. So if one of the witnesses wants to answer those questions, that would, I think, be the appropriate course. Thanks.
Again, one more time with the question.
The police report indicates that there was a bumping of Mr. Ibby by some females in the bar as they were walking through the bar. That indicates to me that it was deeper in than the vestibule. There's no recollection of an incident that was deeper into the establishment, not all right at the door.
My recollection, and again, it was a couple months ago, was that it happened in the middle of the one that maybe in the middle of the bar where the breezeway is between the two sides, and that when we separated the parties, we got Mr. Santiago, what we didn't know at the time, towards the vestibule, and then and that's really when it accelerated with the female, and everybody else would have been just separated, but that it would have started in the inside of the bar, and then we worked them towards the vestibule and out the door.
And it was a lone female? Because Mr. Ibby indicates that he was confronted, it appears, by a group of unknown females.
There was a bunch of people, like I said, at the beginning of this incident, pushing. And in my opinion, one of the females must have followed Mr. Santiago out the door, and she just kept yelling and screaming at him.
Okay.
Commissioner Howe?
I have, Mr. Kelleher, I have some other questions. On the police report that was just given to us by your attorney, it states that Mr. Santiago violently struggling and fighting with bouncers as they were attempting to escort him from the building. The listed defendant and the bouncers went down to the ground as a result of the defendant's struggle. Are any of the bouncers here that were fighting?
Chad.
Okay, could I question with him?
Just state your name for the record, sir.
Chad Dorigo.
Thank you.
How long have you worked for the Village Smokehouse?
Probably about 8 years.
How many?
8 years.
8 years. So, drawing your attention to November 12th, 2016, were you working on that night?
Yes, I was.
And why don't you tell me what happened at the closing time?
There was an altercation inside in the small bar in between the breezeways. The security guys, the door guys, started escorting people out the door. And then I actually was standing at the back of the bar when I saw the altercation. They started moving people to the breezeway, or the vestibule. And that's when I saw a bigger altercation going on in the vestibule. I went into the vestibule, I started separating people, and then the first person I saw really out of control was Mr. Santiago. I grabbed him by the arms, I brought him outside. He kept resisting, which he ended up falling to the ground. I grabbed him, I was holding him, and then Mr. Kelleher went over, grabbed the officers. I physically handed him to the officers, and that's when he started resisting with them, and they took him into custody.
Earlier in the evening, about an hour, or well, maybe 12:30 a.m., do you recall any incident?
That is the only incidents I recall that night.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Rajo, Kelleher, or Councilor Hardigan? Officer Contois, you step to the lectern, please. Just state your name for the record, sir.
Joseph Comtois.
Officer, you've listened to Councilor Hardigan and Mr. Kelleher and Mr. Rajo. Can you either refute or elaborate on what happened that night?
I wasn't at the scene at the bar. I worked the main desk that night, and Mr. Ibby came in and filed the police report.
Right.
The following day.
And what time did he file that report?
He entered the Lowell police station at approximately 3:49 in the afternoon.
3:49. Okay. Any questions for Officer Contois from the board? All right. Mr. Ivy.
Chairman, could I ask a question?
Absolutely, Counsel.
Officer Comtois, I just have a question about the CAD call search that you did.
Yes.
Because I think that your report states this call was entered, handled at 1:31 a.m. The 1:31 a.m. Hansen report. I believe that's the one that you found in the CAD call.
Correct.
And you stated, in reviewing the report, does not immediately appear to be related to Alex's incident.
Correct, because I'd have to look at the report again, but it didn't explain that the incident stemmed inside the barroom, and it had no mention of Mr. Ibby, so that's why I cited that it didn't immediately appear to be the same incident.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Officer. Mr. Ivy? Sure, Counselor, go ahead.
After reading both reports, would you agree that there are similarities, at least in the physical location, between the incident that Mr. Ibby described to you and the incident in Officer Hansen's report?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Ivy, approach the lectern. Please state your name, sir.
Alex Ivy.
Mr. Ivy, the board seems to be having a conflict with time here. At least I do. What time do you think this transpired, this incident?
So I believe it was 12:30 because I was the designated driver. I'm from New Hampshire, so I'm used to the 1 a.m. call.
Yep.
So I happened to look at the clock and be like, I think it's about time I try and find my friends that I'll be driving home. So that's why 12:30 is such a prominent time for me.
Okay. Did you see another scrum? I know you don't know Mr. Santiago, but did you see any other altercation at that time?
No, I did not.
In your statement, you had mentioned that the bouncers had said, "Don't call the cops, don't say nothing." Would one of those bouncers be Mr. DiRigio?
No.
No, it was someone else?
Yes.
And they stated, quote, unquote?
Quote unquote. So this was near the end after the incident occurred. They kind of just said, you should leave without informing the police. And then they kind of gave me the hint that I would most likely be arrested if I would go forward with it. So that was like right before I was escorted out again.
Okay. And what time was that? How much later are the...
I couldn't tell. It was after the incident. I had an ice pack on my face at this point.
Okay, so you went home after
Yes.
that? And
Yep.
then you came back to the Lowell Police Department and filed a report around 3:30, is that right?
Correct. So there was another friend of mine who wasn't drinking as well, so he ended up taking my vehicle home. The ones that drank ended up taking taxis home. I went to the hospital the following morning.
Yeah.
After I was diagnosed and everything, I went home with the papers, and then that's when I thought I should go to the Lowell Police Department.
Okay. Questions, comments from the other commissioners? Commissioner Howe?
What time did you get to the Village Smokehouse that evening?
I couldn't give you a time, honestly, maybe 10 o'clock, but I'll give you a time.
And how many people did you arrive with?
Close to 6 total, including myself.
Was the bar crowded that night?
Yes, it was very crowded. There was a lot going on the dance floor, and that's where the beginning of the incident occurred, and then it followed up into the bar.
Please explain to this board what happened when you say the beginning of the incident. Please explain.
So from the beginning, I was on the dance floor with my girlfriend. My friends had dispersed already, whether they were going to grab another drink or do whatever that they were doing. I noticed the time. I let her know. I said, you know, we should probably go try and figure out where they are. So I followed her. I brought her off the dance floor. That's when I noticed that I got hip checked pretty hard, enough for me to turn around and notice. My girlfriend was being confronted by two women. And so I was kind of seeing what was going on, and then they started swinging at her face. That's when I took her, put her behind me, tried to figure out what was going on. The group that the women were with were not helping. I was asking, you know, does anyone know these women? They kept coming at me. They kept trying to aim for her. So I took her, wrapped her up, and she started getting hit in the head, getting dragged to the floor. So I just lifted her, and then I brought her to the other side. There's 2 bars at the facility. So I went from the dance floor to the second bar. And then that's when I was approached by a bouncer. And I was told to leave, and I asked her, did you see what was going on? And she said, I don't care, get out. So I said, okay. So my girlfriend was in front of me, I was in front of her. Next thing I know, I'm on my hands and knees, and I can't see out of my left eye. Really, and then a young fellow, I have no idea who he is, came up to me, took me, said, hey, don't worry about it, I'm gonna clean you up. I'm a pre-med student at UMass Lowell. At this point, I don't really know what happened. I just know that I couldn't see out of my left eye. He went to bring me to the bathroom, and as we were going to the bathroom, another bouncer had told us that we had to leave, and he said, no, he needs medical attention immediately. They allowed us into the bathroom. That's when I looked into the mirror and realized that I got socked in the face. He cleaned me up, my nose was bleeding, he was cleaning my hands of all the blood, and then as I was coming out, I don't think it was a bouncer, it was a man in a button-up shirt came up to me, and that was the man that basically told me that I shouldn't go to the police, and he gave me an ice pack, and that's basically how it happened, and then I was escorted out.
That last conversation you had with that gentleman in the button-down shirt, where did that take place?
Right outside of the bathrooms, like right as outside the hallway of the bathroom, right at the side of the bar.
So the first incident that happened on the dance floor with your girlfriend, the first bouncer that came up to you, can you describe, you said, was it a female?
It was a young blonde female, probably 5 feet tall.
And how did you know she was a bouncer? Did she have a security outfit on?
I noticed she had a smokehouse shirt on, and that was just something I don't go there too often, I am not a regular there, but I assumed that she was a bouncer based on the way she was telling me to leave the building and her attire that she was wearing.
And what did she say to you when she came up to you?
Without explicits, she basically said, you know, you guys got to get out of here. And I just said, did you happen to see what happened? We didn't start it. And she goes, I don't care, get out of here. And then as she was escorting us out, that's when I was hit blindsided.
And approximately what time did all of this occur? You said 12:30?
I looked at the clock at the beginning when I wanted to leave the dance floor. It was 12:30. After that, I didn't look at a clock at all at that point.
When you walked out of the establishment,
Yep.
was there anyone in the vestibule fighting?
I'm going to be completely honest. I don't really remember a ton from the bar to my truck. I had one of my friends drive my truck home, and I just remember being in the backseat. It was all kind of not a blur, but I kind of just had the ice pack head down going at that point when I had my girlfriend and then 2 of my friends that she was with helped me get back to my truck.
Thank you.
So where were you assaulted? Were you assaulted in the vestibule or inside the restaurant?
I was assaulted close to that breezeway that they had mentioned. If you go through the breezeway a little bit and go to the left, there's a...
Were you being escorted at that time? Were you being escorted to the vestibule when that transpired?
When you
were assaulted?
Yes, I was being escorted out of the building.
Okay. Commissioner Krieger, anything to add?
No, not on this item.
Commissioner Donahue?
Chairman?
Yes, Counsel. Absolutely.
Okay. So, Mr. Ibby, you don't remember who gave you the ice pack, is that correct?
It wasn't anyone specific. It was basically handed to me, whether it was from a bartender or an individual. I do not remember who gave me an ice pack. It was somebody in the bar.
Okay. You don't recognize anybody here today that would have given you the ice
No.
pack? Okay. And During the dance floor altercation,
Mhm.
About how many people would you say that involved?
With my girlfriend and I, or are you saying with people videotaping as well?
There were people videotaping?
So that the people that I asked who these females were with were all had their phones out and were just kind of observing rather than helping diffuse it.
Okay.
So as for the people, it was myself, my girlfriend, and then 2 women.
Okay. So fair to say there was enough of an altercation that people on the dance floor noticed what was happening?
Absolutely.
And at any time, did anyone from the Village Smokehouse come to assist or see what was happening?
No, I was not approached until I physically carried my girlfriend to the other side of the bar, and then that's when the bouncer came up to me and asked me to leave.
Okay. And then after you were punched, and then you said a young man, possibly a UMass student, approached you, where were you at that point?
I was on my hands and knees. So I wasn't knocked unconscious to the point where I was flat on the floor, but I was knocked enough where I was standing, and the next thing I know, I'm on my hands and knees, and I kind of looked up, and I couldn't see out of my left eye. I wear contacts, so I assumed my contact fell out for some reason, but then I realized that it was not my contact, and he kind of came over with his arm on top of me and kind of didn't explain what happened, but he just said, I know what I'm doing kind of thing. So at that point, I wasn't with anybody I knew. I was just with my girlfriend, who at the time was just kind of looking down at me, so
Okay.
I kind of followed it.
And then was that in the vestibule or outside?
No,
the
it
establishment?
was exactly where the incident took place, right after the breezeway.
Okay.
I was never in the vestibule. Is the vestibule considered the exit, that little hallway right by the?
I would think vestibule, breezeway.
Yes.
Gate, right? Okay.
Okay, so.
The entryway.
Yep.
So I was not at the entryway.
Okay. Did you see any bouncers around you at that time? After you had been punched?
I don't recall any. I didn't really look around at all. I just kind of was like, what happened, to be honest.
And then on your way to the bathroom, you said you were approached by staff?
So as I had my head down, and I heard the young man, somebody said, you can't go in there, get out, and he said he needs medical attention immediately, and he just kind of kept dragging me through, and then I ended up in the bathroom, and that's when I looked in the mirror and kind of realized what was going on.
Okay. But you don't know if that person who said you have to go, you don't know if that was Village Smokehouse staff?
No, I do not.
Okay. And then while this was happening, and I know that your memory and eyesight wasn't great, but do you remember any lights dim, like closing time announcements or dimmed lights?
By the time that I came out of the bathroom, the lights were on.
They were on?
I believe so, yes. The lights were on because I was brought right to the bar, and the lights were on at that point, yes.
Okay. Why were you brought to the bar?
I can't recall exactly how I got to the bar, but I just do remember that the man in the striped shirt and being given an ice pack. So I think that he was kind of, reaching out, giving me an ice pack for my eye. He understood the incident.
Okay. And while you were at the bar, did you see any Lowell police officers?
After the incident? Or are you saying in general?
The entire time that you were at the bar?
Oh, yeah, so as I entered, I saw one at the door and things along that line, but I wasn't really observing if there were any officers around, but I did notice as I came in, there was one.
Okay, but as you left, you didn't see any?
As I kind of stated, I just kind of had my head down with the ice pack, and I was directed by my friends. There were officers in the street. There was commotion in the street. Don't deny that. I could hear it. So I wasn't looking around for any officers, no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kelleher, was there a female security on that night?
Yes, sir. It's in the incident report, Amanda.
Did she patrol that dance area?
She mostly patrols around the bathroom. We have her around mostly to go into the ladies' room if there's any trouble in there, or just to see what's periodically we walk into the bathrooms.
Yep.
To make sure there's not any problems.
Mr. Hardigan, do you have any questions for Mr. Ivy?
I do. Mr. Ivey. You met with Patrolman Comtois the following day at a little before 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
Correct.
And you have no doubt that the Patrolman Comtois is good and capable at what he does, correct?
I have every reason to believe he is, yes.
And did you review if you had an opportunity to read the report that Patrolman Comptos wrote that summarized his conversation with you?
No, I did not get a chance to completely read the review.
Would you please take a minute to review that? Because it seems to me that what you've provided to the commission here, none of that's included in the report.
Is
Fair to say
there
that there's
anything specific you were trying
Well,
to?
there's nothing about being on the dance floor, holding your girlfriend. I mean, you've provided a significant amount of detail to this commission, correct?
Correct.
All right, and none of that is included in that report, correct?
I would say correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further, Counsel?
No.
Commissioner Donahue.
Mr. Debbie, when you were leaving, after you got an ice pack and you said you were going out the door, you said you noticed there was commotion
Well,
at the doorway and on the street?
on the street, yes, I believe that there was commotion.
You
There
saw
was-
police officers.
Correct.
You didn't report the incident to them at that time?
No, I did not.
No, but there were police on the street when you walked out of the bar?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Keller, what's the capacity of the smokehouse?
402.
How many people were there that night at that time, would you say?
I would put it somewhere between, on a typical Friday night, somewhere between 300 and 350 people.
Mr. Ivy, would you concur?
To be completely honest, I would not be a great judge of how many people were in a facility. I don't.
All right, so near capacity, right?
I would like to say, yeah, but no problem. I would say closer to 350 than 402.
Okay, and the number of personnel for security on that night was how many, 6?
8 door guys plus myself.
8. Is that regular for Friday night at the smokehouse?
To be honest, if I know I'm getting a detail, it's 8. Typically on.
Mr. DeRico's kind of nodding yes, is that pretty much the common
If I know I'm
number?
getting a detail, it's 8. Typically on Saturdays, we don't get filled. I'll put 11.
Yeah. So we had police officers across the street, is that what was at that time?
Almost every Friday and Saturday night, they're positioned at Prescott, at Palmer and Middle Street.
How many were there? Do you know?
Typically, it's 3. It's an officer and 2 patrolmen.
That sound right, Deputy?
Yes, that could be correct. I don't know how many were there that night, but
Okay.
that might be a usual complement.
In the last 4 to 6 weeks, how are we doing over at the smokehouse?
This incident that's before us tonight is the latest one that I'm aware of.
Right. Nothing else egregious?
No.
Any further comments from the board? Commissioner McCarthy, further? Anything further? I'm still having a tough time with the timeline here. 12:30, 1:15. I don't know exactly when this all transpired. That makes it difficult.
It seems to me that we're not looking at things happening in discrete points, but over time. To be taken into the bathroom and have someone deal with your eye is going to take 5 minutes or so, getting in, getting out. So I can see how this stretches from sometime after 12:30 up towards, he says that the lights were on, so what's that, 1:15?
1:15.
Yeah.
What time did the lights go on that night?
Always no later than 1:30, usually between 1:15 and 1:30.
No, when the incident occurred, did the lights go right on? No?
I don't believe so.
On 1:15.
I have a comment, some comments.
Commissioner Howe?
I guess I have a problem with, there's an incident inside, and if Mr. Ibby is to be believed, it was a pretty serious incident, and he was not treated that well by the Village Smokehouse. And then happenstance, there's another fight in the vestibule, and the police are there, so we don't have to call the police because they were here for this other fight. So I just have a real problem with Mr. Ibby's testimony. I find him credible, and I have an issue with how he was allegedly treated that night. And I think that if there's a fight in the bar and you push everyone out, we all know what happened at Willie Tops about 10 years ago. There was a fight in that bar, and they pushed them out, and someone got shot and killed. So I think the police were outside, that's great, but I just have a real problem with this, and I think that they violated both of the things that the police alleged.
How do security personnel communicate to each other? You do have headsets. All right. So I guess my question would be, the female security that was on duty, and I imagine she was the only female security on that night. So once again, going back to Mr. Iby's testimony, is that there was some ruckus going on, and that female security noticed it and abruptly told them, it's time for you guys to get out of here. Was that not communicated to the other personnel to draw them to that dance floor?
Not that I'm aware of. We usually have guys stationed at.
So why didn't she do that?
I'm not 100% positive. We usually have guys stationed at points.
Yeah.
We have 2 guys on the stage, we have 1 guy standing on top of the stage, we have 1 guy standing right off the stage. Then we have a person stationed in the back of the small bar, we have a person stationed at the front of the big bar, and we have 2 other people roaming around the bar.
Yeah.
So, typically we have somebody in every location that, if they're fighting the dance floor,
Mhm.
2 guys observe the dance floor. So,
Right.
break up the dance floor, we have a guy in the back, and then we have 2 guys walking. So, we typically do our best to try to, stop any altercations before they happen, of course, but in that incident, I don't know why it wasn't very over.
So she saw something and tried to move.
Unless it was a physical thing that people were just arguing, she's like, all right, guys, let's go, we gotta move, get out, you guys gotta go, try to intervene that way.
Well, once again, Mr. Iby testified that there was some swinging between the ladies, his girlfriend and a couple of other ladies. And I'm just wondering, at that point, that kind of a red flag, and you want your the personnel, security, to at least alert a couple other people, let's get to the dance floor quick here, we got a problem.
Well, he said that he had asked her if she had seen what had happened, and I guess her response was, I don't care what happened. I don't know if she saw what happened on the dance floor.
Well, she had to. She told him to leave.
Well, I don't know what the instance was she told him to leave, but she's usually on the small side of the bar. She's usually not on the big side with the dance floor.
Go ahead, Mr. Hardigan.
I think this, to some degree, comes down to credibility. And what keeps coming back to me is Mr. Ibby went to the police station the next day, and I'm assuming the reason you do that is to give a full and complete accounting of, according to him, an assault.
Mm-hmm.
We've read the report. It is nothing compared to what Mr. Ibby testified to.
But why would a female security ask that person to leave at that point?
Well, if I can get to that.
Sure, go ahead.
The second point is, and again, to the credibility, Mr. Ibby himself said, I walked out and there's a policeman right there. And he says, I don't know if they were open, I don't know if they were closed, but normal reaction is, let's go get the guy that hit me. So, I have no reason to believe, in fact, my experience is the contrary with Officer Comptois. He accurately summarized everything that the alleged victim came in less than 18 hours later.
I don't think I'm questioning that, Mr. Hardigan, what you're asserting. My question, I'm trying to get back to the point of security where, if I'm not mistaken, the last time this Village Smokehouse is here, is that we asked you for a comprehensive security plan of what was going to happen.
Yes,
So,
concentrating primarily on the in and outs because of the underage issues.
Right, correct. So with the amount of personnel, and I'm starting to think that 6 might not have been enough. If we're talking 350 patrons.
We had 9. We had 8
I
plus Mr.
apologize,
Keller.
9. So we had 350 patrons, and we have there was a scuffle. I feel there was a scuffle on the dance floor, because they make that female security ask the people who were to move along, rightfully so. But no other security knew about this. And there's a headset. and nobody knows. And we're talking about a female security who is, I think he said 5 feet tall. I think might have a difficult time handling 4 other patrons in a fight.
That's what, the other way to look at it is, if in fact what our position is, that this wasn't an hour apart. It wasn't, going into the bathroom, getting assistance. It was the scuffle on the dance floor, which now appears to be a scuffle on the dance floor. Apparently, when he first reported it to the patrolman, he and a friend were walking across the bar and someone bumped into him. I mean, that's different.
Well, it obviously escalated to the point where he got
right, but it's
sucker punched.
To answer your question, the reason that the 5-foot woman or female security officer didn't notify the other people is because it all happened fairly quickly. So we've got the report that says that.
I'm going to object to that. The female security officer is not here to testify as to why she did or did not report to that. That's not in the record, so I'm going to object to that line of testimony.
Okay. You want to continue, Counsel? Go ahead.
Thank you. So it's the question of the time. It gets back to, did this thing happen at 12:30, or did it happen approximately 1:10 or 1:30? I mean, I don't have an explanation or justification if this happened at 12:30.
I don't think we can really get the truth in this matter, because I don't even know where Mr. Santiago even plays a part in this, where the time is so off on this that
he was a
I'm
patron.
trying to get to the point of where rules and regulations by security follow properly. That's, I think, what we're trying to get to.
And I think if this is one incident, then clearly there were.
Okay.
If, in fact, Mr. Ibby is to be believed, I think there's certainly questions whether or not what they should have done, they did. But what I'm suggesting to you, Mr. Chairman, is that all of the reports and all of the testimony, except for Mr. Ibby, supports one incident, which supports the appropriate standard of care.
Thank you, Counsel. Commissioner Krieger and then Commissioner McCarthy.
So are you saying that Mr. Ibby did not get punched at the Village Smokehouse?
I don't have, I mean, I've seen the pictures. Clearly, someone hit him. I believe, based upon what he told Officer Comptos approximately 18 hours after the incident, is he got sucker punched, or I guess it was blindsided, whatever the appropriate term is, when he was exiting the vestibule. That's what he says. He says, Alex stated he put his hands up to block the shot and made his way to the exit as directed by security. While walking out, Alex was struck blindside by an unknown person in the left eye and subsequently fell to the ground. That is completely different than what he told you here.
But then he goes back in and gets his eye treated by some
No, he
Good
says
Samaritan.
as he was going out. While walking out, Alex was struck blindside. After Alex stayed, he finally came and he was escorted out of the bar. And then he left. He gets into his car as Mr. Donahue, in response to Mr. Donahue's questioning, walked right by a uniformed police officer. So he gets hit blindsided, gets escorted out by the bar, escorted out of the bar, and gets into the car and drives home. There's nothing about these trucks and my friends and the girlfriends and 6 people. I mean, it's a very simple report. And I'm sure if we questioned, Patrolman Comptois, he said, I accurately wrote down what he told me.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Attorney Hartigan, there's no question that Mr. Ibby was assaulted somehow. No
I've seen the pictures.
The question that I have goes back to the security again. I don't think the security staff handled it that well. I'm sorry to have to disagree with you with that, on that. I mean, the woman security person should have called for assistance immediately when the situation broke out on the dance floor. And it sounded, in how they were explaining how they're moving the crowd out, they didn't separate the group. They moved everybody out into the vestibule at the same time. That is very dangerous.
I would agree with you. There has some merit in that. But if I didn't do my job then, Mr. McCarthy, if you think that our position is that this altercation began on the dance floor, it is Mr. Kelleher's and Mr. DeRaggio's position that there was one incident that night, and it happened right between the bar and the vestibule. And that was the pushing and shoving, which Mr. Ibby described in the report that he gave to Mr. Comptois, or Patrolman Comptois, that then it's certainly open for debate. I mean, those are snap decisions. Do we move everybody out?
But you have to be able to make those decisions.
Yes, but it didn't happen we don't believe it happened on the dance floor. It happened right as in conformance with his report.
And I don't disagree with that. I think the original altercation started on the dance floor. when he and his girlfriend, somebody was trying to hit his girlfriend, assault his girlfriend. I believe that's when it started. I'm not saying he got assaulted there, but when your security staff, the woman, went to him and said, "You got to get out of here," she had to have a reason to tell him to get out of there. That's when she should have called for assistance to get him out.
Mr. McCarthy, I would agree with you if that's how it happened. But what I'm suggesting is that the police report, as recited by Mr. Ibby, 18 hours, doesn't say that it happened on the dance floor. He says. So I mean, I guess it's a question of who do you believe? It's credibility.
It's exactly right, but I'm saying the security staff should have handled it differently. There needs to be some training over there with security staff, because we were here, a couple of months ago, we had the same problem?
Yep.
Security staff.
It was the in and out on the underage, yes.
So we need to do some serious work with the security staff over there.
Hannah?
You had nine people on. Whether it was enough or not enough, that's their judgment. But they don't seem to be working together with an incident like this anyways, in my opinion.
Thank you, Chairman. I have just a couple of things I'd like to add. First of all, in terms of the police report and Mr. Ibby's testimony, I think that's why we ask fact witnesses to come in so they can elaborate on what is written. And I don't really see any great disparities that draw any questions. And even if we were to assume that this was the same incident, and I'm not convinced of that, but I do concede that the timeline is blurred. Even if we are to assume that it is the same incident, I think that there's still some major issues here. The first being that the altercation on the dance floor wasn't immediately diffused, that at some point later, Mr. Ibby and his company were asked to leave, but that while patrons had the opportunity to videotape what was happening, nobody came to assist or to disperse. And then that altercation wasn't communicated to the staff, I think, is also a problem. Also, when Mr. Ibby was on the floor of the bar, he was helped off the floor by a Good Samaritan as opposed to staff. I mean, they had someone on the ground, and it was up to the other bar patrons to see that he received medical attention. And then I think it's also without debate that the bar staff was aware that somebody had been hit in their bar, and someone gave him an ice pack, presumably somebody with access to ice in the bar, which would, go to staff. So given all of that, I think that you can impute knowledge of the assault happening, and which then makes the report to the License Commission woefully inadequate. I think that there were steps that could have been taken, as the Commission has pointed out, the night itself, but then I also think reading the report, 2 patrons and 1 female got into an altercation, someone threw a punch, that's all that's there. There's no mention of a fight on the dance floor, there's no mention of somebody being assaulted, and there's no mention of, other patrons being involved, which if you take the view that this was one prolonged kerfuffle, then this report doesn't really adequately describe that.
Thank you. Mr. Howard, going to give you the final word.
I think the board's been very generous with your time with me this evening. I mean, I think really comes down to, do we believe Mr. Kelleher, Mr. DiRaggio, and the incident described in Officer Hanson's report, and the incident as recited by Mr. Ibby to Patrolman Comtois, 18 hours, or do we now credit this brand-new story? I think that's really what it comes down to, because if it's the former, I think it's clearly finding that there is no violations because they notified the police and they acted appropriately. If it's the latter, I mean, I think that's open to conversation.
I think this board is not naive to think that, when you are dealing with as many patrons, somebody can throw a sucker punch and it can happen. It does happen, and there's nothing you can do about it. I guess my worry is 350 people too many patrons for the smokehouse to keep in line? As I sit here today, I'm not feeling confident about that. Do I think that would have stopped somebody from sucker punching Mr. Ivy? Probably not. But I concur with Commissioner McCarthy, and I have serious reservations about the security. To me, if you're wearing a headset and something happens on the dance floor, those other 8 security personnel should have known right then and there that there was something going on in that dance floor, and that did not happen. And I do believe Mr. Iby's testimony. I don't know what can be done to put this all together, because obviously we've had prior visits here by the smokehouse, and I think this board has been quite patient in asking for security measures that will work. I think this instance shows that maybe we have to tighten up things, and we haven't done that yet. How much more lenience, how much more rope do we want to give the smokehouse is a question that I'll put before for the board, and if there's any repercussions to either one of these complaints. So I'll yield the floor to my fellow colleagues.
If Mr. Chairman, I just
Sure.
may make one point. In preparing for this, I looked at the record of the smokehouse.
Yep.
And there have been dating back to May 20th of 2011.
Mm-hmm.
The commission, or the smokehouse, has been before the board on separate offenses, alleged offenses.
Correct.
One of them was dismissed. 2 of them, there was, the assertions were placed on file. So over the, 6 years, and it's not suggesting it's a stellar record, but over the 6 years, they've been here for 4 times. They've been found to be in violation on 4 separate events. So, I know we were here recently, but, it's a tough business.
That's why I agree with that. Any further comments from the board? Mr. Donahue?
I believe, and I'm leaning towards Attorney Hardigan's idea of the one incident, but I think that speaks poorly of the security, that one incident dragged over a period of time and wasn't quelled immediately. I believe that it's one incident because Mr. Iby is himself saying that there were police outside, and that lets me feel that police became aware that there was a problem there. And so I'm not so much concerned with the failure to notify the police allegation as I am with the failure to maintain order. I think we're all coming to the point now where we feel that that night there was a failure to maintain order because this dragged from the dance floor and the initial, as Officer Comtois said, the bumping by the females of Mr. Iby, and then it continued to drag on through the whole establishment, it appears. So my concerns are with the failure to maintain order. Thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Krieger?
Yeah, I see this as one event in that there were a number of components in it that stretched over a period of time. The good news is that it didn't get out of hand any more than it did, which says that security was paying some attention. But you said 4 incidents over the time. Putting it on record, on file, I think, counts that we were not happy, so make that 6. And Commissioner McCarthy's right. We feel that security needs to be improved at the Village Smokehouse. And the question is, how do we get the attention of the Village Smokehouse? We tried saying, give us a report, and you guys are back here a few months later, so I'm still thinking about this.
Deputy Superintendent Webb, you have anything else to add?
No, I would just like to voice my agreement that even if we're to believe it's one incident, there's still the question of failing to maintain order and decorum in the premises. And I'm still not convinced it's one incident. I think it was 2. But I won't belabor that point.
Thank you. Hannah, James, anything else to add?
No, I would just add that in addition to the failure to maintain order, I do find the report that was submitted to the License Commission to be disturbing in that it doesn't include more detail.
Commissioners, Any motion on the floor? Do we have anything that we'd like to add at this point?
I'm sorry, there's a motion on the floor?
There is not a motion. I'm asking if there would be a motion on the floor.
If I was going to make a motion, I would put it for several days suspended, 2 days suspended, because I think we need to make a statement here to the Village Smokehouse and to everybody else that we're expecting them to have the right staff, the right number of staff, properly trained, coordinated on the day, and maintaining order.
Second.
Was the motion for a 2-day suspension, both days being served?
No, both days suspended.
Both days suspended. Is that still a second by Commissioner Howe?
Yes, it is.
It is.
Oh, no, it's not.
It is not. Do I have, he is calling for a 2-day suspension with both days held in abeyance.
No, I'm not seconding that.
Do I have a second? We do not. Any other motion on the floor?
A motion for 2 days suspension.
I have a motion by Commissioner Howe for 2-day suspension, both days being served. There's a second by Commissioner Donahue. Roll call.
Chairman Dakota?
Yes.
Commissioner Krieger?
No.
Commissioner McCarthy?
Yes.
Commissioner Howe?
Yes.
Commissioner Donahue?
Yes.
4 yeas, 1 nay, suspension of 2 days. It's just a matter of question of when to serve the...
Yes, I'm trying to get a date here for you. Any suggestions, Secretary Nguyen? Today's the 26th. When is
Well,
it?
all practical, considering all the practical need of drafting a communication, notice of suspension, and having the law department review that communication, and subject to that, sending it to the licensee, in which, upon receipt of the notice of decision, I should say, licensee will have 5 days in which to file a written appeal to the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. Respectfully, we consider maybe in not less than 2 weeks from now.
I'd like to ask the maker of the motion if she has any preferred dates on these 2 days of suspension. 2 weeks from today is February 9th, which is a Thursday. Commissioner Howe?
That's fine.
Both days served consecutively?
Yes.
Secretary Nguyen, make a note that 2-day suspension will be on February 9th and February 10th, a Thursday and a Friday.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
We're not done yet. Was the right thing to do.
Commissioner, we'll proceed with the 7th item on our meeting agenda. Your hearing on the allegations of misconduct as charged by William M. Taylor, the Superintendent of Police. Communication dated December 29, 2016, against the licensee Gary's Typico, Inc., doing business as Gary's Typico Restaurant, 26 Andover Street. Manager of record is Bantroy de los Santos, manager, and for all alcoholic beverage restaurant licensee. Mr. Chairman, if I may just say, notice of hearing was emailed to the licensee on Tuesday, January 17, 2017, and was sent by first-class mail as well to the business address at 26 Andover Street. This afternoon, approximately 3:20 p.m., I received a telephone call from an attorney, Gregory D. Obenhauser, in which he identified himself as a legal counsel for the licensee, Gary's Typico Inc. Apparently, he had just been retained by the licensee this afternoon, and it was Attorney Oberhauser's request, and he was to forward an email to that effect, that he would wish a continuance of this hearing that's scheduled this evening. An email came to through the law office and to me, into the, you have copies of that, which was received, and a motion for continuance to the board. I advised Attorney Oberhauser at the time in my conversation with him, in anticipation of this written communication, that Lowell Police Department would have Sergeant, I should say, Daniel Damaris present, as well as the recommendation to him that his client appear before the License Commission, and though the commission would consider his motion at the regular meeting.
I'd like to ask a question to council. Is it all right for me to ask a question before we take a vote?
A vote on what, Mr. Chairman?
Of a continuance.
No, that's fine. If the party is here to speak about, you can ask him about the need for continuance if he's,
That's,
yeah.
I'd like to know why.
Sure.
If you could state your name for the record, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Gary De Los Santos.
Gary, I guess my question is that this board is always, we're okay with some continuances, but 3 hours before you were supposed to be here, we get something from your attorney saying that we'd like a continuance, and it just seems like last minute, and I'd like to have an explanation by you.
Well, being honest, he wasn't gonna come with us. I was the last minute that my wife and the owner of the property told me, you should talk to him, you should go with him. I didn't think it was gonna be necessary. That's why.
So you felt that you were going to represent yourself in this matter?
Yeah, I thought I could answer any question and.
Of the complaint, you were going to represent yourself. Is that your answer to me?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Commissioner Howe?
I agree with the motion to continue.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McCarthy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Krieger?
I'm a nay on this. I'm a nay, sorry.
I'm a nay as well. May the vote show 3-2 that there's a continuance. You'll be continued to the next meeting. You can ask, the next meeting is when, Secretary?
It would be Thursday, February 16th at 6 p.m. here at the City Council Chamber. A notice of continuance will be emailed to your attorney and sent by first-class mail to you as well, emailed as well to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Quickly, last but not least, is a communication from Eric Slagle, Director of the Developmental Services Department. Its communication is dated January 11, 2017. It's regarding an entity known as 493 Princeton Boulevard, LLC, doing business as Coelho Fuel and Repair, 493 Princeton Boulevard, Lowell, Mass. 01851. Francesco Coelho, owner. Mr. Coelho is, for the board's information, is a Class 2 used car dealer licensee for the premises and 493 Princeton Boulevard. And where the City of Lowell Developmental Services Department has had ongoing complaints and issues with the property owner, the landlord, or the owner of the business with regards to junk and parts of junk vehicles and ongoing issues. And Mr. Coelho is apparently not giving much cooperation. The Director Slagle is looking to the board to take disciplinary measures with regards to the Class 2 used car dealer's license, which is for a designated space on the lot, a matter that had been before the Zoning Board of Appeals several years ago. A special permit had been granted for sale and service, sale and service of secondhand motor vehicles. A license subsequently was granted by the License Commission. So
Since we've had that communication, has the matter been rectified? Since you've received that communication, has the matter been rectified?
I've received no follow-up communication. The law office, one of the attorneys, not Hannah or James, who are present this evening, had addressed the matter with Mr. Slagle. Apparently, there were a number of pictures that were submitted with this written report. It shows clearly that the license holder is not cooperating, and it appears that there's no indication that there's been any change in that.
What's the wish of the body?
Well, I'd like to comment that I think we've heard about this before, this problem, and this has been bounced around. But there have been complaints before this most recent one that Mr. Slagle has brought to our attention. So this is not a new matter. This is an ongoing matter. So I think that we need to bring in the individual and have a discussion with him about what's going on, and ask for a more complete report from Mr. Slagle as to how he sees the violations.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd like a comprehensive report from Mr. Slagle and his department on what exactly, I did go by there the other day. I've seen worse. I think maybe some cleanup has happened, but I think I agree with Mr. Krieger. Maybe we bring him in, but I'd like a report from Mr. Slagle stating what has transpired and what was not fixed or repaired, or
Well, if you were to
I'm not really sure what we're looking at here. Right
If a notice of hearing is sent to Mr. Coelho, which would, assuming the hearing would be held at the next regular meeting, which is February 16th, in and of itself, that may spur on Mr. Coelho's cooperation as well. Or
so be it, I guess. Let's make sure.
But we need to have a report so we know what it is we're whining about.
Well, I think this report you have now,
It's been ongoing for some time.
Yeah.
what's cited is specifically the License Commission regulations governing requirements for license for secondhand motor vehicles, used car dealer class 2, as defined Chapter 140, Section 58. Licensee shall maintain clean lot free of junk motor vehicles or parts. Used automotive oil and fluid shall be disposed of in compliance with state and local environmental regulations, and minimum intervals not more than every 10 days. Refuse containers also to be employed in the same manner. Then it is citing Code of the City of Lowell Code or Ordinance, Chapter 185, Sections 185-1, 185-10. Junk and secondhand dealers Lowell License Commission may, upon petition, license such persons as it deems suitable to be dealers in junk, precious or old gold, old metals, or secondhand articles, and keepers of shops for purchase, sale, or barter of such articles pursuant to law within the city. But point of it all is, we have our own regulation, and it's noted on the back of each and every license that's issued. I don't have a copy right in front of me at this very moment. If there's going to be any action by the License Commission on this matter, you would be solely focusing on the license that's been granted to Mr. Coelho for 5 cars to be stored. And the question is, if the other issues relating to how the use of the lot is taking place, that
I'm not sure if we have any
you have any
jurisdiction.
jurisdiction. So the question is, if in the end, would the License Commission be so inclined to want to, say, revoke a Class 2 license in that situation that would maybe presented to you at a hearing, or take other type of disciplinary action on this type of But beyond that, it's not like you can,
So if 5 cars are stationed exactly where they're supposed to be, which is on the, near
corner.
near the fence there, outwards to Princeton Boulevard. I believe this is where the
is
5.
it there's Baldwin Street there?
There's Baldwin too, but I believe the cars are supposed to be on the fence going towards Laureate Street. That's where they're supposed to be parked. Now, if they're not, then I would say, sure, we'll have Mr. Colio pay us a visit. But if inspectional service is saying that there's other things, be it junk or everything else, I'd like to know from a legal perspective, does the License Commission have anything to do with that, or is that an inspectional services? Hannah, anything?
Sure, so I think perhaps what Secretary Wynn was getting to was with what comes with the license, and I'd have to read, I haven't read the whole license, but what comes with the license are certain conditions that have to be kept up besides just the number of cars. That then the License Commission could certainly weigh in on that, whether all of the conditions of the license are being met. As to other concerns that inspectional services may have, I don't think that those could be addressed through the License Commission. However, it being a long-standing issue with the city, with this particular establishment, I think, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Slagle, but my understanding is that taking an all-hands approach, so License Commission taking a look at the license to see what is and is not in compliance, is just sort of like a holistic approach to this establishment.
What would the board think about getting some correspondence from Mr. Slagle that everything has been brought up to code? And if that's such the case, then fine. If it has not, then let's have him pay a visit and hear from him.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Slagle.
I'd like to at least get a report from Mr. Slagle. What's transpired since we've received this? Has anything been done over it on the property?
I'm with the chairman and Commissioner McCarthy.
so,
Can we have legal and in your department have some correspondence with Mr. Slagle that in fact
a subsequent report to what you
right, just to see if everything has been done by Mr. Quello and his responsibilities of making sure the place is clean.
Otherwise, there'd be no notice to the licensee.
And I don't think we need to be brought in front of this commission if everything is being, it's been rectified. I mean, I don't know what's happened since then. Has Mr. Quello done absolutely nothing? Then fine, I think he should come in front of this board. But if...
I do know that this letter that we have on our agenda was also sent to Mr. Coelho.
Right.
So it may have also had some effect.
Let's see if that has in fact happened. If it has and he's done his due diligence, then fine. Other than that, then we'll bring it in front of the board.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Move to adjourn.
By Commissioner Krieger, second by Commissioner Donahue. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Everyone have a good evening.